First of all, let's spend a minute at least on Rex Tillerson. He was only there about a year or so, but what did he accomplish?
Right. Well, you know, he was a steady hand. I think that's the most positive thing I can say. I think his instincts turned out to be pretty good. We know that this was quite a tumultuous year in U.S. foreign policy, and we certainly didn't need a Secretary of State who would be erratic or who would be temperamental. Or who would become the story himself. And even though President Trump feels that Tillerson sometimes was off message, that was usually the president's doing, because he would change his own message or update it or leave Tillerson in the dark about what was coming. I don't blame the outgoing secretary at all for that. So I think we have to give Tillerson credit for being a pretty calm hand on the tiller, and more for avoiding an exacerbation or intensification of any ongoing problems than for solving any big issues. I don't think the Trump administration solved a lot of problems in its first year, but I also think things could have been a lot worse, given the way the president wanted to turn U.S. foreign policy commitments upside down on trade, on tariffs, on alliances, given the way in which he wanted to pull out of major overseas commitments. None of that really happened in 2017 the way it had been feared, and I give Tillerson some credit for stabilizing American foreign policy in that period.
So if that's right, and I'm sure it is because you're an expert on this, does that mean that, in fact, that influence, that leavening influence may be gone now with Mike Pompeo, and we could expect a little more radical approach to foreign affairs?
I do think Tillerson is closer to the centrist view on most American foreign policy issues than Pompeo, but I also think that Tillerson, through no particular fault of his own, had a shaky relationship with the president, which meant that his influence and leverage were limited. Sometimes I think Tillerson's best leverage was in his partnership with Secretary Mattis. I think those two have had a good partnership on many issues, and Mattis has often wanted to make it clear he's supporting Tillerson, and they're often forging their positions together and trying to cooperate. So I think in that regard you've had some leverage by Tillerson indirectly, but Pompeo's going to have much more of the president's ear, and that could be for good or for ill, depending on whether Pompeo is pragmatic or if he's more ideological.
At least, will we be able to see U.S. policy towards Russia move forward after being stuck since the 2016 elections?
Well, it's possible. Now, that's going to be a tall order because, as you know, the president feels that the legitimacy of his own elections being questioned any time we keep talking about Putin's hand in the 2016 race. The president worries that his own people are under indictment and maybe some facing jail time. The president may worry about a potential impeachment scenario, not that I think that likely. And so for all these reasons, because all those issues have to do with Russia, anytime you talk about Putin, talk about Russia, you raise all these domestic and legal issues as well. And that means you've really got to have a person who at the same time can be tough on Russia, can be realistic about what they've been doing to us and our democracy, but maybe look for some new ways to get along. Tillerson did that very quietly, and he, I think, had some useful interactions with Russian officials on issues like Syria policy, but he wasn't able to really get this thing to the big level of, let's say, what's the future of NATO, the future of European security, right. Really trying to find out if there's a possible way to stabilize U.S.-Russia relations. I hope Pompeo may be capable of that. We'll have to see.
What can we expect from Gina Haspel, the nominee for CIA director?
Well, I hear good things about her. As you know, she's a career CIA officer. She had some involvement in some of the tougher elements of the war on terror, and some people, therefore, don't like her or think she was implicated in the enhanced interrogation techniques, brouhaha. Personally, I think that if she's confirmed, she'll get beyond that because the CIA will understand that she wasn't doing any of that, or her role wasn't something she chose. It was what she was doing as asked by a previous administration. And so if this is President Trump's choice, my guess is that ultimately, if she's confirmed, she will receive a good reception in her home agency and in the White House.
So, Michael,
so let's see what the confirmation hearing is like, but I think ultimately her odds are pretty good.
So, Michael, we've already heard from John McCain, Senator John McCain, saying he wants a vow from her that she will not engage in this enhanced interrogation. Can she give that vow consistent with the President of the United States?
Boy, that's a good question. I would think you'd have to look for all sorts of ways to finesse the question. Maybe what you would say is, Senator, I certainly have no intention of doing that. We don't usually actually think they work, those methods. And if there ever were a circumstance that was so extreme as to make me reconsider, you know, the ticking time bomb scenario, I would want to consult with you. Maybe that kind of language can allow her some flexibility, but still acknowledge Senator McCain's concerns. I don't know.